Hello, welcome to the People Profit Podcast, the show where we flip the script on traditional business thinking and prove that when you put people first, profits follow. I'm Sandra Coker, your guide on this journey to more engaged teams, loyal customers, and a healthier bottom line. These episodes are brought to you by Human Power Solutions, helping organizations unlock the human potential that powers performance. Whether you're a leader, an HR pro, or a curious change maker, buckle up. We're diving into fresh stories, real-world strategies, and a few laughs along the way. Ready to turn your workplace into a profit-powered people machine? Let's get started. Welcome back to the People Profit Podcast, the show where we dive deep into how investing in your people supercharges your bottom line. I'm your host, Sandra Coker, CEO of Human Power Solutions and the author of People Profit. If you're a leader, tired of the talent treadmill, high turnover, disengaged teams, and that nagging feeling that work shouldn't hurt, you're in the right place. Today, we're talking culture, engagement in turning workplaces into places where everyone thrives. Our guest is a powerhouse in HR and organizational development. Mildred, I like to call her Millie, Black. She's the founder and CEO of Optimum Consulting. With over 2 decades as a senior HR pro, Mildred's walked in the shoes of leaders facing trust gaps, disengagement costing billions, and the challenge of filling roles in tough markets. She's built her career on the belief that work shouldn't hurt for employees or employers. From her signature 5-rule survey to curating evidence-based training, Mildred helps companies measure culture, boost engagement, and create meaningful partnerships. She's a recognized diversity expert by the Wall Street Journal, a past president of her local Sharon chapter, and an Amazon #1 best-selling contributor in personal transformation. Melanie, welcome to the show. What an honor it is to have you here today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Me too.
Me too. We've known each other for about a year now, and I've been kind of watching your journey, and we're doing some stuff together. And so I'm really excited to share with our audience your expertise and how you look at the world as far as culture in the workplace. So for anyone, before we jump into this, if this episode sparks even one idea for you or your team, hit that like button, subscribe wherever you listen, and share it with a leader who needs this today. All right, Mildred, let's get started. You've got this incredible blend of hands-on leadership and community impact, from chairing diverse business councils to founding boards for nonprofits like the Tuscaloosa Safe Center. Take us back. What sparked your shift from corporate HR roles to launching Optimum Consulting?
That's a great question. So for me, Sandra, the decision to launch Optimum Consulting came after over 2 decades in HR leadership and really reaching that pivotal point, which we all reach at various stages of our career, where we're deciding what's next. And my crossroads was either I was going to pursue the C-suite route inside of the organization I was working with, or outside of that organization, or I was going to pivot and really take the knowledge and expertise that I've been really cultivating over those 2 decades and put together a solution that would serve many organizations. And that was the path I chose to take. And I haven't looked back. I'm very grateful because I get the opportunity every day to serve and to create opportunities for others who are subject matter experts to serve. And so it's really cool. And I'm quite passionate about the work that I do, in that I believe in the power of the human potential. Mm-hmm. When I was thinking about what name shall I give the work that I'm pursuing, that I'm getting ready to do, I spent a lot of time with that. I sat with it for quite some time to come to it. And it really reflects the belief that I have that there's always a better version, better version of people and a better version of organizations.
I know. I think people are so cynical right now. Like, no one is nice. Like there's no good places to work. And I mean, because you always hear the bad. But people like yourself are going in and saying, no, it doesn't have to be this way. I love work shouldn't hurt because I think almost everyone can relate to that. I know I certainly can. And to our young leaders who are listening to this and they're coming up, I mean, sometimes work will hurt, but that's how you grow a lot of times. Was there an aha moment when you saw how internal trust gaps, and talk a little bit about those, what that means, and how internal trust gaps really tank the bottom line? Why is internal trust so important?
Internal trust is at an all-time low. It's been declining over the last several years. And statistics, according to an international study by DDI, about 1 in 3 employees says, yes, I sincerely trust the leadership in my organization. And when you think about there being 2 out of every 3 people not saying yes to that question, it's quite concerning, and it does call for attention. I believe that every organization right now needs to be prioritizing building a culture where trust is a priority. It's not that we are going into work expecting our employers to serve out every need.
Right.
However, as Covey says in the book, The Speed of Trust, trust is essential to get things done because the human brain is either going to be operating in the executive function, in the processing function, or in the fear function. And no trust, then you're basically calling upon the worst of what each human being has to offer. Because we're in fear, we're not in creativity, we're not in innovation, we're not in love. We're in survival mode. We're in stay alive mode. It's like a cheetah is chasing through the woods mode instead of the mode where we're innovating and serving at the highest level and thinking about what comes next and how might I multiply what I'm doing? Or how might I be more efficient? That's what you miss out on when you don't prioritize trust. And not only do the employees feel it, customers feel it. It's reflected in the quality of the work. It gets reflected in the quality of the service that is provided. It affects productivity. It affects efficiency. It affects the bottom line. It's essential. It's relationships and how we connect with one another in the workplace. It has always been important, and we've never mastered it. We are closer now than we've ever been, and even at this place of awareness, we recognize the statistics let us know that we have work to do.
Yeah.
So now that we're awake, the question becomes, now what? And that's what I love that people like us do. So
when you think about our up and coming leaders, what are some of the pointers that you can give to them to help them build trust in their teams as they're growing in their leadership, as they're climbing up that quote unquote ladder? How do they help build that foundation with their teams?
One piece that's critically important is I have 3 C's. The first is clarity. People need to understand what is expected of them, and they need to understand why it matters. Why is this important? Because purpose is fuel. It drives human motivation because it really it speaks to the heart and the mind. So the first C is clarity. The second C is connection. This is a heart conversation. Again, it goes back to our conversation on trust. It speaks to engagement. I've been working with various engagement vendors as a senior HR leader for many, many years. And at the end of the day, if you boil them all down, what those engagement numbers are telling us is, do I like this work? Do I like where I'm doing this work? And do I intend to stay here and do this work and go the extra mile? And so that connection piece gets to how vested am I and how vested are you in me? Yeah. And so even the leaders who demonstrate, a level of concern for the development of the people on their team, they get better outcomes than the ones who don't. Organizations that invest in people's development get better outcomes. So you've got the clarity, you've got the connection. And the third piece is culture. And culture is the human experience at work. And this is the work that I do, Sandra, is around clarity, connection, and culture. And together those make the alignment. And that alignment is what I love helping leaders to diagnose, measure, and make decisions to improve. Because truly, when people are in alignment, you get better outcomes. So I would say to any new leader, seek alignment. Seek, do that through clarity, connection, and culture, because alignment is health. And the health of organizations is dependent upon people understanding what's expected of them, knowing that they're not going into a war zone, and knowing that they're going into an environment where their humanity is valued and is seen. And that's what passes any program. That's what passes anything, that experience that I'm having when I'm there. Sorry,
yeah. And I think, I think that's overlooked a lot. I think a lot of times they're given these goals, just let's get that done. And they get into that kind of that work mode, where it's like execution versus this is the why, this is how we're going to do it together, and create it. But the culture piece too, for me, is I like to talk about like the culture of like allowing mistakes. Things are going to happen and it's not going to be perfect. So when you said the humanity, like allow the humanity to come in, I think talking about making mistakes and not maybe doing the right thing, or, it happens sometimes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'd love to. Really and truly, transformative thinking is really key as it relates to what you're talking about, with understanding that people are going to err. I love the work that has been done around just culture. I had the opportunity to teach just culture as an HR leader. And I love the concepts in the just culture model, which deal with when the mistake happens, what do you do?
Yeah,
because I have learned that problems and mistakes, and even news that most would perceive as undesirable, it has so much value wrapped in it.
yeah,
yes. It is the resistance, it is the interruption that causes us to recognize opportunities for improvement. Because we could be flying at this altitude, and then comes the interruption or the disruption of the undesirable thing. And then it causes us, if we capitalize on it, it becomes a moment where we're going this way, and then there's an interruption.
Yeah.
If we capitalize on it, we get to come up and fly now at this altitude.
Yeah.
But if we just go, oh, this sucks, I don't like this, oh, this is so bad, why did this happen? It's your fault. Okay, you're bad. Now, right. We could stay here, or we could end up going.
I was going to say,
yeah. And so that's one thing I hope the leaders can really understand is, hey, your biggest problems are your biggest opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Write all this stuff down. Clarity, connection, culture. I love it. I love it. So I want to talk a little bit about your volunteer work, like on the Alabama's credentialing committee, or the Chamber of Commerce. How has that shaped the way that you approach client cultures today? Because I'm sure, I do a lot of volunteer work as well. It's a different beast than working in corporate.
How has it shaped? The work with the Alabama credentialing group was really centered on standardizing the competencies that would be recognized by the state for workforce development purposes. And the work that I did with the Chamber of Commerce of West Alabama was centered on, business development, economic development, but also specifically a focus on diverse business. The businesses are on some dimension of difference, that are owned by individuals who are on some dimension of difference. I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish in those environments. I'm very proud of opportunities to galvanize small business. I love business, period, because every business is there to meet a human need. And whether it's a large corporation that is now going public, it started as an idea in someone's mind.
Right.
It started as a dream for someone. And then from there, it became a thing that then grew and went global, for example. And
Yep.
so the opportunity that exists around what seems like a seedling business is
Mhm.
tremendous. You never know the level of impact that it can have. And so
Right.
I'm very proud to have had a hand in creating opportunities for small businesses to come together and galvanize and look at opportunities and learn from one another. And, even in the work that People Optimum does now, because we have a cohort and that we are leading in partnership with our local municipality. And in that cohort, we're working with a group of scaling construction businesses. And
Oh.
they're learning best practices around management and leadership. And in doing so, they can grow with confidence, knowing that they are truly operating with a strong people foundation. And so
Mhm.
it's a honor to be able to give that knowledge and the tools to them to be able to do that. So the answer to the question is it continues to be a passion of mine to see those dreams come to life, and then from coming to life to see them grow with a solid foundation. It's very interconnected to the work that my practice continues to focus on and move toward.
I love it. And I love the fact because we do a lot of, I call it the underserved business communities, a lot of times automotive, construction, with, all of that, like they often just they don't get a chance, or they're growing and they're promoting people because they're good. And there's never any kind of, let's sit back for a second. Let's figure out how to do this right. So I love the fact that you did that. It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about People Optimum. All right. Your mantra is work should not hurt, which I love. I wish I could steal it, but I won't. It's backed by your culture model workplace health assessment, which is a game changer for measuring culture through behavioral, environmental, and outcome lenses. Can you break that down for us? How does this assessment uncover those hidden issues like the trust gap that you talked about earlier, where only 1 in 3 employees buy into leadership?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So first and foremost, group dynamic theory says that everyone is experiencing their own reality. And when we bring those collective experiences together, we get a global, if you will, perspective from within that container, whether that container is a department or a division or an entire organization. And so what we start by asking leaders to do a self-assessment of the health of the workplace. And that health assessment is really a look at those 3 C's that I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's a look at clarity, connection, and culture. And by examining those at the self-assessment level, they're able to get a lens and a view into what zone do they believe their culture falls in, from going from connection all the way up to alignment. Where are they on the scale? And
Right.
so that assessment is done with leaders, and we're excited to be offering snapshots complimentary for leaders to do that self-assessment. But when we get a global lens where everyone is able to gain the clarity, connection, and culture, this is when we're able to see how aligned are you really? Because
Yeah.
if there's anyone in the organization that's saying, I'm not clear, I don't know what's expected of me, or no, I don't feel connected,
Yep.
or no, I don't see this culture as thriving, then we have an opportunity. And engagement is in there as well. So is the connection to the heart. And so is the connection to culture. And we have a model that we use to look at culture. All of that is a part of what we're evaluating through that one workplace health assessment.
Which my team actually is going through right now. They promised me they're going to have that done. I'm super curious about, what that all looks like.
Running a business is hard. Developing your people shouldn't be. At Human Power Solutions, we act as your outsourced chief learning officer designing custom learning and development experiences that actually move the needle. No fluff, no cookie cutter workshops, just results. Whether your people need better communication, stronger leadership, or less burnout, we provide strategic solutions that align with your goals and keep your team moving forward. Visit hpowersolutions.com and unlock your team's full potential without disrupting operations.
I have to say, just in knowing you and spending time with you, we shared a house with some other women. Your heart is like, you're in this for the right reasons. And I love when you talk about leadership being heart-centered. I think so many people in that Gen X boomer arena generation, my generation, that seems to be not so important. Why do you think heart-centered leadership is one of the new leadership competencies coming up?
Mhm. Absolutely. And you're right. And I'm a Gen Xer as well. And our generation, the Gen X group, we were a much smaller population who was absorbing the work of a much larger population.
Right.
And so we were raised on independence. We were latchkey kids. We were hustle and grind, get it done. And so we were taught by our parents that we needed to go and pursue and work hard. And I'm not saying that those things are not true. They were raised by traditionalists who very much believed in the work ethic. So we were raised on work ethic and independence and get it done.
Right.
I can't say that we inherited heart-centeredness or consciousness, if you will, in its relationship to work. That was not a part of the conversation. It was get it done. It was work hard, and it was accumulate.
Yeah.
Those are the governing ideas. And we birthed a generation that were more conscientious, and we raised them that way.
Yeah.
And so heart-centeredness has always been important. And throughout the history of work, if you really look at the history of work, it has never been prioritized. We really just started talking about workplace culture within the last century.
Right. Yes, true.
We weren't really talking about that or thinking about the experience at work. We don't have a good history when it comes to the human experience at work. And so where we are now is we're at a critical place where this generation that is now coming into the workforce, they are demanding it. We are in the age of experience. We are no longer even in the digital age, even though we are birthing so many AI and technology innovations. We are not in the technology age. We are in the age of experience, particularly post-COVID. We are in an age where people, we were cooped up for, I lost count. and we were in the confines of our home, and we are outside, as the young people say. We are outside.
Yeah.
And we want good experiences everywhere we go. We prefer to be in an environment where we feel or sense that we are being valued. We prefer that. We should. And we don't go to restaurants where we don't sense that we are welcome. Who would do that? In 2025, people are not paying. They are not paying with time, interest, attention, or money, or effort, or energy. They are not giving it to things that do not reciprocate with appreciation. And that's where we are in life. And I'm here to help employers get on board, because the reality is you will not attract talent. You will not be a magnet. You will not be magnetic for talent if you do not perceive those as important factors. And customers feel it. In the technology world, because I spent some time studying engineering, electrical engineering specifically, and one of the tenets is garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
And if you think of your organization as a container, how can you expect to have poor experiences going in and have customers getting good quality services and products going out.
Speaking my
That's-
language.
That is, yeah, we're there. That is unfair. It is unrealistic. It is imbalanced. And so, yes, we must prioritize, and we must measure, and we must pursue solutions that improve the human experience at work. It is essential to our economy to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on right there. So, you would do this assessment, your company does the assessment and got the data. Then you move into this evidence-based training or development, right? You're curating the experience that actually stick for leaders in these teams. What do you think is a common behavioral issue that you see in entry-level heavy organizations at high turnover and hard to fill roles? How do you coach leaders to kind of like stop looking at employees as commodities? One dot, I'll get another one. Can you give us a tactical tip on that our audience could use? And I want to give you a quick example. My husband works for a large organization. We won't name it. They're manufacturing, and they've got first, second, third shift. And it's just like, oh, if one person goes, don't worry about it. I'm like, what if you kept everybody and kind of like help to develop them? Then maybe you have a well-oiled machine, and you know what I mean? But I find that sometimes that it just doesn't, that lower level, and I don't even call it the level because they're the most important level. They're the client, they're closest to the client. I feel like they're just discarded sometimes.
Absolutely. It really speaks to the conscience of the organization, and every organization has its own ethos. And that's really what you get when you start to look at that health is what are we thinking here? What's our thinking way? And while everybody in their house has a way that they do things and a way that they think, the organization has to govern and set the tone for what we believe and what we think in this container. Right. And what you're describing is very common. In fact, I have worked in an environment where they were very quick to not take those mistakes or those errors as gifts and opportunities and dispose of talent, and then be struggling to attract new talent.
Yeah.
Talk about cutting your nose off to spite your face. And so talent is not as disposable as we think. And in fact, turnover increases the cost of bread, milk, eggs, and cheese. Because according to the Society of Human Resource Management, one position turned over one time can cost about 150% of the average annual salary for that position.
Yeah.
You've got to post it, that costs, and then you have to attract the new talent, and that costs, and then you got to screen that talent, that costs, and then you got to select the talent, that costs, and then you've got to onboard the new talent, that costs, and then you got to ramp them up, that costs. All of that cost. You could have spent half, if not 25% of that effort, energy, and resource rehabilitating or developing the talent that you already have, particularly if they are engaged and they want to be there. Now, if they don't want to be there, that's a heart issue. We don't control human will. However, if they want to be there and they are engaged, then it's worth the effort to do so. Yeah. There are 5 human practices. We measure these in the workplace health assessment too. There are 5 human practices that every human being wants to experience everywhere that they are.
Yeah.
And I call them the heart model: honor, empathy, authenticity, resilience, and transformative thinking. And that is the heart.
Yep.
That is the heart of the matter. And so when we have environments where people are not respected, where they are not empathized with, where they can't be their authentic selves, where they are not in the loop on change, and when bad things happen, we don't manage it well, or where the organization itself is not innovative and they don't see itself or people as works in progress, you have problems.
Yeah.
You become your own problem in those instances.
It's so true. I really, it's so much of that is so true. We talk with our employers, like it takes 5 months to break even on an employee. So if you're giving them a 90-day trial period, you're already done, at that point. And what's funny is, so my husband, obviously he lives with me and I live, eat and breathe this. About 6 months ago, started for his shift. He runs second shift, and for his shift, they had a lot of turnover. He had a lot of people on, final written warnings. And he started to implement these 45-minute Friday professional development. So conflict resolution and all these other things. And he has no one on final written warnings. His team, there's opportunities that opened up in first shift and is like, no, we're not leaving this shift because they know. And that's so, and so now he's like, now we're looking at other initiatives that we can do because we've got a team that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's so cool to watch in those things. So when you think about, you've worked with Mercedes, you've worked with some big daddy companies, I would love to say, is there any stories that you can talk about without breaking any confidentiality?
Well, I will say that, yes, People Optimum has had some amazing opportunities to work with some incredible brands, and we're very grateful for every opportunity to serve.
Yeah.
One thing that's striking to me is the components that carry culture and how much a brand actually can carry the culture.
Yeah.
And if said brand were to invest in the quality of human connections and the quality of environment, how much more equity they would have people. Because the brand actually, and I can tell you, I have data on this. I have sat with leaders with worldwide brands and asked them to evaluate the quality of the culture based on the model that we use. And it becomes evident that for them, the brand is carrying their perception of their experience at work. The quality, what they feel they're experiencing with one another, and the quality of the environment can sometimes be lagging, and the brand is what carrying it. And so I want to say to corporations, yes, your brand is significant and important, and it carries a lot of equity with the people who are doing business with you and the people who are devoting their talent to you. Yes, it carries a lot of weight. And how much more efficiency, how much more revenue could you drive if you invested in the quality of the human connections, if you invested in the quality of the environment, not just the physical plant, but also the psychological environment and the physiological environment. If you invested in those, how much more could you gain?
Love this conversation. So great. Everything you said, just it echoes, what we talk about every day, what I cover in the book, People Profit, right? But you're also big on that that framework to tackle absenteeism, poor performance, risky behaviors. How do you blend that into the work that you do?
I will tell you that there is a relationship between all of those factors, the quality, the safety, and engagement. There's a direct connection there.
Yeah.
Because when people are distressed, when they are stressed, when they are disconnected, when their mind is elsewhere, because all of the work is a product of what's going on in the heart and mind. And when the heart and the mind are not connected to what the hand is doing, you're bound to have mistakes. You're bound to have errors. You're bound to have suffering quality. Of course you will. Even if we're just juggling balls in the air, if our heart and mind are not connected to what we're doing, you're not going to be able to perform that task.
Yeah.
So performance that we want to see is directly connected to the connection to that human being's heart and mind. And it's a real opportunity.
It is. It's a real thing. So leaders, if you're nodding along, thinking about your own teams, having a little questions, this is why Mildred's work is so transformative. So one more thing for you before we get to my rapid fire round, which I love. With disengagement hitting $350 billion yearly. What's one daily habit you recommend for fostering that pleasant work environment without overhauling everything?
I would say that leaders need to ask open-ended questions and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And simple questions such as, how can we improve?
Love that.
How's it going? And I'm doing this to say, and then just listen, because the experts are the ones who are doing the work.
Yeah.
The gold is with the people who are doing the work. If you ask them, ask your team, how's it going? What can we improve? How is this working from your perspective?
Yeah.
From your perspective, what could we be doing better?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you stay here? What motivates you to stay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would motivate you to leave? Solid gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So open-ended questions that get to the heart of what's going on with people are solid gold for any corporation.
And to actually listen to the response.
Yes.
I think Bryson's coming back with that answer, right? That's great. So anyone that's listening, write that down, the open-ended questions. And if someone says that they would leave for 25 more cents an hour, there's an issue, right? So I think it's listening and really hearing and intaking and processing through what people are saying.
MIT Sloan said that compensation is ranked 16th among predictors of turnover, and that employees are 10 times more likely to leave because of culture than compensation. So you're right, 25 cents.
Yeah.
Real
What?
reason.
And if, you know, you hear all the time, like people leave managers, and it's true. We've all done it. I left Marriott, who I loved that company. I loved working for them. They were amazing, except for the one manager that I'm like, I'm not doing this. And it was too bad because they lost talent. And I think people really need to be thinking about that. All right, we're going to do a rapid fire round, which is one of my favorite things to do with our guests. You ready? These are quick answers, no overthinking. All right. I know you like to think about things, but let's. All right. So, what is your favorite book for leaders right now?
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Love it. Okay. All right. Love that. One word to describe the perfect company culture.
Aligned.
Oh, spot on. Love that. Biggest leadership pet peeve.
Fear.
Fear. Right. We might go back to that. We've all been a bit afraid for our bosses, right? If you could zap one workplace myth, what would it be?
That people don't want to work.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yes. Yep. All right. This is going to be a harder one. Dream collaboration with a historical leader or a modern influence.
Could you repeat that?
Yep. All right. Your dream collaboration with either a historical leader or a modern influencer. Who would you love to work with?
Historical leader.
Historical leader. Is there a certain one you have in mind?
No, but I recognize the value of wisdom.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Mildred, this has been packed with so many gems, from the culture model workplace health assessment, spotting those trust gaps, to those daily habits for relational cultures. What's one big shift you hope every listener makes after today?
What I want for leaders is I want them to recognize the connection between what's going on inside of them and what's going on outside of them. I want them to prioritize their health and well-being, and prioritize the health and well-being of every other human being that's connected to them. And that includes not only their families, but their teams.
Yeah.
I believe that as leaders do a better job of taking care of their well-being, their heart and their mind, their hearts and minds, and becoming more conscious and paying attention to whether they're operating from a love or fear, Pay attention to that. I believe that they will find that people are drawn to them, and they will find that people get on board and are aligned with what they're trying to accomplish. Because people wake up in the morning wanting to have a sense of accomplishment and wanting to belong and wanting to reach for their highest potential. Everybody does. Every human being has that trait, has that shared need to belong and to reach for their highest potential. And so when leaders can be co-creators of that, I believe that they find success naturally, much more easily.
I love that. Absolutely. Small changes, it creates great profits, right? And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and that unshakable commitment to workplaces where people can really optimize their potential. Appreciate you coming on. That's a wrap on this episode of the People Profit Podcast. If Mildred's insights lit a fire under your leadership game, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with your network. Tag a fellow exec who's battling disengagement. Your shares help us inspire more leaders to build thriving teams. Mildred, before we go, can you tell our audience the best way to connect with you and learn more about People Optimum Consulting?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. I can be found on all platforms at I am Mildred Black. And I would love to, if I may, invite your audience to check out howsmyculture.com if they'd like to take a complimentary workplace health snapshot to get an idea about what zone their culture is in.
I love that. We will make sure that link is at the bottom of in the area where the people link things to. We'll make sure that that's all there for them. So head there now, folks, because Mildred Black is amazing. She's awesome. No, thank you again so much. Until next time, remember, invest in your people and watch your profits soar. I'm Sandra Coker. Keep profiting from your people. That's a wrap on this episode of the People Profit Podcast. If you found a nugget of wisdom or even just a spark of inspiration, share the love, subscribe, leave us a review, and pass the episode along to a colleague who's ready to build a people-first culture. Big thanks to our sponsor, Human Power Solutions, for championing workplace where humans thrive and profits rise. Want to learn how they can energize your team? Head over to hpowersolutions.com to get started. I'm Sandra Coker, reminding you that when you invest in people, you invest in profit. See you next time.